Hello and welcome to Raised by Horror, an all-inclusive podcast for grown-up latchkey kids of all genders and orientations whose proxy parenting was done by horror films and books. We have a tantalizing show full of dreadful delights, hosted by our very own Richard Kadri and Violet Blue, and of course me, your production demon, Scotland Simons. Check out raisedbyhorror.com for more info, and now, on with the show.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Nice to see you again.
Hello.
Welcome to Raised by Horror. I'm
Yes.
really afraid of this episode. Like a lot.
It's a scary episode. It's a scary
really
one.
scary episode. Oh my God. Today we're going to be talking about films that scared the shit out of us as adults.
As adults.
I'm good because I
just-
don't watch any of these because I guess I'm an adult, but I just don't watch anything. So I'm intrigued to see what happens.
No, this is this is where you make your list of films not to see, Scotland.
Yeah, I think you would hate both our lists.
Oh my God.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm here for this. I'm so here for this.
Getting ready for this show was just like terrifying because I had to remember and like go back to those places, and I rewatched everything, and oh my God, I've re-traumatized myself for the episode. Everybody, this is fantastic.
Me too. Is that the exact ending that I remember? And it's worse. I made the ending.
It's worse.
I made the ending not as bad in my memory. So
oh yeah, I've definitely got one of those to talk about.
yeah.
It's just saving me from the trauma every day. I appreciate you both so much. Thank you.
But one thing I did notice on both our lists, so what scared us as kids episode, we had vampires, we had aliens, we had giant insects. And I think all of our stuff as adults is basically human monsters.
Yeah.
Pretty much monsters.
I mean, that clocks with real life anyway.
Yeah, I mean that's the weird part of growing up is like I went from tarantulas to guys who roofie you in the middle of the desert and then try to murder you.
Okay, I know which film that is.
Yeah.
Let's go. Come on.
All right, you want to get into it?
Yeah.
Yeah, do it.
Well, that film is Wolf Creek from 2005, directed by Greg McLean, and it is a really hard film. It a great tradition of the city bringing countryside and getting caught up in something really awful. You know, the key film for that is Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which obviously, you know, has been copied a million times. So like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, we open up with some young tourists going across Australia, 2 British women and a local man. Their car breaks down in Wolf Creek National Park. And the first clue that they get and that we get that things are about to get weird is that all of their watches stop.
What year was this film?
2005.
Oh, so it's after Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh, it's well after. It's like
Okay.
31 years after Texas Chainsaw. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Sorry, I was just curious.
Yeah. No, it's fine. So all of a sudden, there's watches stuff and time is completely suspended, which is what the last part of the movie is, because while they're stranded, this guy named Mick comes by with his truck, sees them broken down, and offers, well, I'm a mechanic. I can tow you to my place and fix your car.
Always
Turns
a bad
out that
sign.
Yes, it turns out that this place is hours away. It's a mining camp in the desert. And when they reach it, he very quickly roofies everybody. It's like, here,
Right.
you know, have a drink because it's late and you don't want to get dehydrated. And boom, everyone's out.
Strong welcome to Whoop Whoop vibes. It's a
Yes.
film from a long while ago that takes place in a very similar location in Australia.
Oh.
Oh, interesting. I've heard of the film. I haven't seen that one. I'll have to
I
look for
haven't seen
that.
it either. Oh dear.
But what's interesting here, I think, is that this is where Wolf Creek diverges from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Because in Texas Chainsaw, you get the feeling that if the kids had just left the house alone, where the Sawyers lived, they probably wouldn't have been killed by Leatherface and the family if they'd just walked past the house.
Right.
But in Wolf Creek, the difference is Mick is a hunter.
Right.
And you know he's done all this before. Mick is cruising for victims all the time.
He's an Aussie serial killer.
He is an Aussie serial killer and just an outback hunter with no sympathy. So once they wake up from the roofies, the rest of the film is about mostly the women fighting Mick, trying to get away from Mick. One is killed, one is paralyzed during this. Ben, the man they're traveling with, wakes up to find himself nailed to a cross.
Right.
Now,
right.
he manages to get out and wander into the outback, and he gets rescued by some passing tourists. What happens at that point is, all we know is that Liz is still with Mick at the camp. Christy's dead. Ben is taken into town and put on trial for the missing women.
Right.
So
right.
he's all the trauma that went on in the desert, he's re-traumatized by that. And at the end, we're left with just Mick in the desert. I mean, the last image is Mick wandering the desert with his rifle, letting you know that he is out there still hunting, still waiting for the next city people to wander into Wolf Creek. And which is really makes this film harder, because if you remember, even in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Sally gets free from the cannibal family and is rescued. But there is no escape from Wolf Creek. And even if you live like Liz at the mercy of Mick while you're paralyzed, or you live like Ben, who is just broken.
Right.
And will never get past what happened to him and what he saw in the desert.
What aspect of that particularly scared you when you first watched the film? Because the whole setup is just horrific.
Yeah.
Right. And it was a real story too, wasn't it?
Supposedly.
Okay.
I'm not clear on whether, because Texas Chainsaw is supposed to be a real story too. I suspect they both might have roots in something real, but have been so blown out of proportion that they're kind of unrecognizable. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what scared me, well, first off, I don't go in the wilderness. That's my first rule. I don't go into the wilderness.
You're like, I just don't go to Australia.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there's too many spiders down there, so I don't know when I'm ever going to go to Australia. What scared me was the setup, the idea of letting down your guard. Someone, that feeling of letting down your guard, and then you're roofied, and then you're just fucked, because not only are you at the mercy of someone with weapons, you are nowhere. Like, there's nowhere to run. All you can do is fight with your fists and your feet. And if you find a piece of pipe, maybe you can do that. But there's still a guy with a gun and knives who knows the landscape, who's done this probably 1,000,000 times before. So is really a good hunter. It's that there was a sense, as much as everyone thought, of inevitability. And that's what really got to me. And Mick's glee. Mick is a happy hunter.
Yeah, he likes it. He likes it way too much.
He really has a taste for it.
Yeah.
So that whole mix really got to me. That's joyful cruelty.
Yeah. People are monsters.
People are monsters.
And on
Yeah.
the no list, Wolf Creek.
Yep. Straight to the no
No,
list.
you don't want to see this.
Straight to the no list.
Yeah. It's like,
No.
whew. Okay, so Aussie horror, right? I mean, didn't that
Yes.
kind of put Aussie horror on the map in many ways?
It was one of the first ones that really got people's attention. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Because I have an Aussie horror film on my scared the shit out of me list as
Mhm.
well. And so to prepare for this episode, like I rewatched films that I remember scaring the crap out of me as an adult. And on rewatch, some of them didn't. And I couldn't really lock on to why they scared me initially. One of them that was going to be on this list that I dropped was Il, also Them. It's a French sort of extreme horror film. It's a home invasion story based on real events. And I rewatched it and I was like, huh, okay. And then I realized that when I was thinking about films to rewatch, there were some I did not want to rewatch. And those had to be the films on my list, like the ones that I was avoiding rewatching. So I rewatched everything except this one that I'm about to talk about, and it's the Aussie film. I could not make myself rewatch it. It's new. I mean, it came out in 2022. It's called Talk to Me, and it just came out for us. I don't know when the release was in Australia, but oh my God, I could not get myself to rewatch that film. When I saw it, I actually had a nightmare about it. And then I woke up thinking about it. And I was like, this film kind of fucked me up, right? So, okay, so Talk to Me is modern. It's not an older film. The premise is it's kids fucking around. And basically, so the film centers on these kids that basically have they say it's like the severed hand of a saint, but it's basically like a hand of glory, like it's a calcified hand of a dead medium or something like that. And they all get together, they all sneak out of their houses and they all get together, they go to someone's house, they all sit together, and these kids basically they put the hand on a table and they light a candle, and whoever's in the chair gets strapped to the chair and holds the hand like they're shaking it, and they say, "Talk to me." And at that point, whoever's in the chair sees someone or something that no one else in the room can see. And when they see whatever they're seeing, they're supposed to say, "I let you in." And then they're possessed by whatever that spirit is. And their head goes back, their eyes go black, and they are maybe having conversations with something someone can't see, or like there's whatever happens to them, like it's different for each person or each kid. And they're only allowed to be possessed for 90 seconds. They have to sever it at 90 seconds and blow out the candle, and they pull the hand off whoever's holding it at that time. So already this is fucking gnarly, right? Because we've got kids that have this working, functional way of being possessed that they're just jerking around with behind their parents' backs. And they're basically doing it like, it's like they're like passing around nitrous at a party, right? Like that's kind of how it's done. And it's a thrill ride for them, right?
Yeah, because kids never fuck up their drug use.
Oh no. Nope, never.
Nope, they're completely in control.
Perfect every time, every single time.
Exactly. But the film opens really strangely. It opens basically with this guy who goes to a party and he's looking for his brother, and he figures out which room his brother is in, and the people in the party are like, "The fuck is wrong with you?" And he breaks the door down and they're like, "Hey, you can't do that." And he starts bringing his brother out of the party, and they get down into the kitchen, and he's like, the brother turns around and he goes to grab his brother to take him outside, and the brother turns around and stabs him in the shoulder, and then pulls the knife out, turns around and stabs himself in the eye and dies. And that's how the film opens.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
What?
then then we learn about the kids in the hand.
Yes.
And we learn about it through Mia, who is the protagonist. And she has her friend Jade and Jade's little brother Riley. And the two girls have been going to these parties. And the first time we see the hand is when Mia tries it the first time herself. And she ends up seeing her, I believe it's her dead mom, and ends up in the chair for longer than the 90 seconds. They can't get her out. They can't pull her out fast. So you already know something is off here. And the spirit she sees fixates, like completely fixates on the little brother that they brought with them to the party. And so you already know something's going to be wrong. So that's the setup for the film, right? And it's absolutely terrifying to watch the trance happen. And the monsters that people are seeing are really scary. They're like scary dead people that died horribly, inexplicably, in just ways that you're looking at the body standing there talking and you're like, how did you even die? Like, that is so insane. So I'm going to speed this up a little bit. So anyway, what happens is they go to another party. They're all playing with the hand and stuff like that. And the little brother wants to try it. And Mia is like, no, hell no. Like, he's too young. You can't do this. And then eventually what happens is, the responsible people leave the room and the younger brother tries it. And again, they're like, we'll let him try it, but we'll only let him try it for 60 seconds. Like, we'll pull him out sooner. And then they can't get him out. Like, they can't get him out. They can't get the hand off of him or anything like that. And I believe it's Mia that had left. Mia comes back in the room and she's like, what is going on? And it's pandemonium because they can't get this kid. Like, they can't get the hand off of him. And then he starts beating his head on the desk, and he starts beating his head on anything that he can get near. And they try to hold him back, and he breaks free, and he runs over to another, like a credenza or something. And he starts bashing his brains in, like skull fracture time. And then leans back and starts to pull out his own eyes. And that's when they restrain him. They get him to the hospital. He goes into a coma, and shit is just completely sideways after that. Yet the kids still play with the hand. They're still having these hand parties. And after that point, Mia starts seeing her mom outside of talking to the hand. And just everything about, like, the editing is tight with this film. Like, the scenes are really well shot. Like, and everything about it is, you're wondering, like, there's this backstory of, like, Mia's mom committed suicide, but you're starting to realize it might have been Mia's fault for some reason. And she's living with her dad, her single dad, and the ghost of Mia's mom gets ever more present in her life. And Mia starts basically disassociating from reality. And she, like, cuddles up with her mom to sleep. And you're just like, that can't be your mom. Like, that's just too much. In the meantime, Riley's in a coma in the hospital, and Mia's best friend won't talk to her anymore or anything like that. They're like, you're cray. But the kids get together and they go and they talk to the guy that was stabbed in the shoulder by his now dead brother. And it turns out he used to be in their gang, and he used to do the hand thing, and his brother did the hand thing as well. And he basically informs them that, like, after a certain amount of time, someone who is alive will naturally expel a spirit that's trying to occupy the body. And so Mia gets it in her head that she's got to help Riley because he's in a coma. And so, they're going to possess him. They're going to take him away. She doesn't know exactly what's going on. She goes to the hospital and she connects. And now she's taken the hand and she's carrying it around with her in the bag. She goes to the hospital and she puts it on and she touches the kid, and we get to see where he is right now. And it's like Hellraiser on steroids. It's like just this glimpse of, like, one of the most insane scenes of orgy and gore and everything, in this little kid in the middle screaming to get him out of there. And then, and you're just like, oh my God. And things just continue to get worse and continue to get worse. It's really hard to revisit this one. It just, by the end, Mia is obsessed with saving Riley. And when Riley comes to consciousness a couple of times, he continues to try and bash his brains in on things at the hospital. Right. And Mia's mom tells her, and she's like now listening to her mother's spirit, and her mother's, says, oh, you have to save him. Here's how you have to save him. And so Mia goes to the hospital, loads the kid into a wheelchair, and walks him out to the freeway. And right at that moment, her mom is like, you're doing the right thing. Now he can be with us forever. And then, I know, I just got goosebumps so bad. And then you hear a car crash. Riley's sister's running out. And you look back and you see that Riley's still in the wheelchair. And sister has him. And Mia's the one that threw herself into traffic. But she gets up. And she's like bleeding and she's limping. And she goes back to the hospital. The hospital isn't what it seems. And you can tell that it's not really the hospital. And she goes through this period of like seeing her father go down a corridor, who, by the way, earlier she stabbed in the neck. So we don't know if he's alive or dead. She follows him. She sees a wallaby from something that happened earlier in the film. She starts seeing things that connect it back to the earlier experiences of the film, where you're just sort of like, has she been alive this whole time? Is she dead now? Like, what's going on? And then things go dark. And then she hears this, she hears a foreign language. She hears a foreign language. And then she hears, talk to me. And she opens her eyes and she's standing there looking at a kid who's just put his hand on the hand, a different hand in a different country. Mm-hmm. And that's how the film ends.
Yep.
Yeah, hard no.
I have chills so bad right now. Yeah, the whole thing is so I'm struggling to explain which parts of the film scared me so much, because so much of it did. Like, so much of it was just the performances were insanely good, and it had a bit of a vibe, especially in the beginning of It Follows, mm-hmm. where it's sort of you're in for a slow burn, but then things, when the kids start partying with this hand, and just everything about it is like, you're like, no, don't go in the basement. But this film is all about going in the basement. Like,
because it's kids, right? I mean, I've had friends complain about that movie, older friends saying, I didn't like any of the characters in the movie. It's like, do you remember being a teenager? Or at least the kids in that movie, the stupid kids who wanted to push everything to the limit. Mm-hmm. It was like, well, that was me and my friends. I mean, and we were idiots about it. And if we had a hand of glory, we would have done the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's not, it's just kids, but it's also just like, they're bored. They're alienated. They're looking for something that makes them feel. And this makes them feel, and they don't have the guardrails to go, this will go horribly wrong, right?
Yeah.
Like, but
and
just everything
you have
everything about inviting
kids
something
like,
in.
Yeah. And you have the smarter kids like Mia, who realizes she's gotten herself into something too deep. And then you have the other kids. This is where the interesting character stuff, because I think it's really well written and well acted.
So well done. Oh my God.
You get the feeling some of these kids, like, you could have gone on to college, you could have had a life and a career. Yeah. And then you look at the other kids who, like, you might be able to be a gas station attendant if you got your shit together a little bit. And there's kind of that tension, I think, through the film of like, who's tougher, who's not. And that plays into who's going to hold the hand longest, and who's going to be kind of goaded into it when they don't necessarily want to do it. Yeah,
totally. So everything about that film scared me. And I had bad dreams about it. And I think also it's the visuals too, of the way that they look when they're possessed. It's a lot. Scotland. Yeah. That goes on. That's on your no list.
It's well, I've written it down. It's on the no list right here,
There you
so
go.
everything's fine. Did they, out of curiosity though, did they ever talk about like where the hand came from? Like, I find even in your descriptor, I find that just kind of like creepy and ominous.
Yeah, I mean, and especially at the end too, where you realize there are more hands.
Mhm.
No.
Yeah.
What is there
So
a hand factory? Like, I don't know. I hate
No,
to
that's
add
yeah.
one of
humor
the
to the seriousness, but my
No, do it.
mindset here and goes like, is there the ominous hand factory where you can go get your ominous hand and pick it up for your favorite party? Like,
Yeah. 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 I that it's never explained where the
Mhm.
hand came from. And then at the end, the other unexplained question is, oh my God, there are more.
Yes.
What is going on here? So
there's a hand
I hope we
epidemic.
I hope we don't get any sequels, or even worse, we don't get any prequels. I don't want to know where the hand came from, who made the hand, how it came to be. It's just a hand. The kids had it, and that's all we need to know.
no, I want a prequel and I want a sequel because I need answers, because this film
Oh,
makes me
okay.
not sleep at night.
Okay.
Like, I want this shit explained away so I can be like, oh, that was dumb. Because it's not dumb. It's
It's
a
not
smart
them.
film. It's a
Yeah.
very smart film.
Just don't order your hands on wish.com. Like, no
Right.
wish.com hands.
Nope. Yeah, so
I like the fact it was kids. I mean, it's a movie you could have done with adults, but the fact
sure.
it was kids really spoke to me in a way of it had been a very different vibe if they'd been older.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Because they're exploring their sexuality, they're
yes.
having jealous spats, they're estranged from their parents,
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah.
Yeah, it's that perfect moment where
Complicated.
you're kind of exploding out of your life. Like
Mhm.
you're at that point between childhood and teenagehood and adulthood when nothing quite works yet.
Mhm.
It's like you have the response. You're young enough that you can't behave a certain way because like you're too old to behave badly like that. But you're not an adult, so you have no power.
Right.
So it's like that most frustrating moment of your life. And I think things like The Hand were like this perfect release for kids in that situation.
Yeah. And it's also the things that are unexplained, I think, that scared me too. Like,
Yes.
it's the kind of thing where it's like you never really see anybody killed on screen during Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and that's really terrifying because your mind fills in
Mm-hmm.
the blanks. And this film did an excellent job of that, of leaving gaps in understanding of what exactly was going on and
Yeah.
everything. So yeah.
And it's why I hope there's never an American version, because they will explain The Hand.
Yeah, no. No way.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about a different film, because I don't want to talk about this one anymore.
You're creeped out.
I am so creeped out.
Well, how about Martyrs? How about that?
Oh God. Okay.
That's not going to make you feel any better, though.
No, it's not, but
Martyrs is from 2008 by Pascal Laugier, and it's a French film. What scared me about Martyrs wasn't the physical aspects of the film, though they're brutal enough that sometimes they're hard to watch. But what really, really hit me was the ending, where the revelation of why all the violence is happening and the theory behind it, because there is a theory. Again, to go back to Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it's a crazy family who are cannibals, and they kill people because they're cannibals and they're sadists, and it's a good time.
for them.
These people have theories, very elaborate, very deep theories of why torture is a good idea. And that's, I think, another problem with the movie. Not a problem with the movie, but the movie's perception is that it gets called torture porn.
Yes, and
Which
that's
is
why, yeah, that's why I didn't want to watch it.
Yeah, which is I think, a cheap argument, because it does much more than that. For instance, I'll compare it to the recent Saw movies, though not the original Saw, which is very different. the recent Saw movies, it's easy to be gleeful and be on Jigsaw's side as he puts his victims in impossible puzzles, and then we get to see them ripped apart. That's I think what people think of as torture porn, but there is no glee in Martyrs. It's a serious movie for grown-ups looking at how violence and using violence to comment on the world, especially extreme and twisted belief systems and how they impact women. Because young Lucy, who we meet at the beginning of the movie, is tortured by her captors and escapes. But the fact is, she's saved, but she's given really little sympathy by the institutions that were supposed to take care of her, law enforcement and the medical establishment. She's just a kid sort of thrown into this orphanage setting after escaping from a year of torture in a slaughterhouse. While she's in the orphanage, she meets and befriends her Anna, excuse me, and we see them kind of grappling with who she is and how they can be people together. Then we quickly jump forward 15 years to a home invasion. And what you realize is it's Lucy as an adult breaking into a home of an apparently perfectly normal family having breakfast. Mom and dad are there. The kids are joking about school. It's all that nonsense that you have in your regular, a regular boring suburban life. Lucy bursts in, kills everybody with a shotgun, including the kids. Because she believes
it's very dark.
And it's it's very dark. But she believes that this family, the parents, were part of the system that tortured her all that time. And she basically hallucinates during the attack and she's been talking about a demonic woman who tortured her. And she calls her friend Anna and, I've done this thing. Can you come help me basically clean up and get rid of these bodies? Anna, a really good friend, comes to help her clean up this slaughter.
Yeah, your friends help you hide the bodies.
Yep.
Always.
But again, Lucy hallucinates being attacked by this woman that she believed tortured her. But all Anna sees is Lucy torturing herself while they're trying to clean up. And here's where we begin to understand what the movie's about. After excuse me, the next morning, while they're cleaning, Anna discovers a secret tunnel under the house, and she finds a tortured woman in it, proving that Lucy was right about the family, and they're part of whatever this system is that's torturing women. After trying to help the woman she finds, who is just physically beyond description, the more she helps her, the more the tortured woman, like Lucy, tries to destroy herself. And what happens is a group of people that she thinks they're the cops burst in, kill the tortured woman, and capture Anna. Now at the groups, they take her to some kind of installation, a group's headquarters, where Anna meets Mademoiselle, who is the demonic woman of Lucy's nightmares. And here's where things got to me. What she explains is, this isn't random torture. This isn't meaningless abuse. They are a secret religious group looking for the secrets of the afterlife by torturing young women, literally inflicting the wounds of saints on them so that they'll enter an enlightened state and bring back visions from the beyond.
So they're evangelicals.
They
really
are evangelicals, and that really got to me. Having grown up partly in the South, the evangelical super creeps really got to them. And so
I've never
Anna's
seen this film because I can't. It makes me too uncomfortable. All of this.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you see how uncomfortable Scotland and I are looking right now. Like,
yeah.
this is not. I don't need to watch this as a film. Like,
Well, that's why I think the
we've
film
lived
is
it.
so
Like, no
powerful.
thanks.
Excuse me. Yeah. Sorry.
It's okay.
That's why I think the film is so powerful now because of the evangelical connection. Because we do see abusers looking for answers in the flesh of innocence, and they destroy them. And we see this, especially in America right now, where we're abusing women, minorities, gay and trans people in this grotesque effort to appease these religious extremists. And I think, things, they're certainly not getting better. The only moment of, payback in the movie is that Anna, through all the torture, they flay her alive, and Anna does actually reach an ecstatic state, and she does see something, and Mademoiselle comes to her, and it's like, give me, basically like, give me the secrets of the universe. And she whispers something to Mademoiselle, and Mademoiselle, instead of telling what the girl had told her, she walks off and shoots herself in the head, leaving the group wondering what the secret was. So you get the feeling, that Anna had a bit of revenge. And if you believe the religious underpinnings of their belief system, God got a little revenge too. I mean, it was the power they were after, looking down on them and saying, not happy.
Interesting.
So it's interesting both ways that, they dove into their religion, and what they found there was the worst thing they could imagine.
This leaves me with an interesting question. For those who are very devout to their religious belief in this, situation, would them watching something like this have, what kind of connotation do they walk away with? Do they see their own irony in this? Like, that's something that kind of like sits here and it sits here, and I'm just like, gross.
Yeah.
Just gross.
Yeah. I think this is a good opportunity, though, too, to point out that with this show, we're going to be talking about films that we don't necessarily agree on, and that we're going to talk about films that not everybody on the show likes. And it's not that we're like, oh, we agree to disagree. It's like we like to disagree with each other about films. When we have these conversations that aren't on the show, we like to disagree, and we like to be like, I liked that film, I hated that film. But we talk about it because we want to find out why. Because for me, it teaches me something about what I like and what I don't like, and it gives me a different perspective on something that I don't like. So whereas Martyrs, I will never watch that film. Not in a bazillion years. There is no way. My feeling about that is, I'm an atheist, so I don't need that. And like, as a storytelling vehicle, like, I don't need it. And then also, like, I just don't need to see more of my kind tortured and harmed and gratuitously or anything like that. I don't need it. And I like my healthy boundaries about my horror. So
absolutely,
that's just not going to happen. But I was really curious when I saw that you had that on the list, because I was like, why is that particularly terrifying for him as an adult? Right.
It is, again, a bit like Wolf Creek, in that you're caught up in someone else's belief system. Mick is a serial killer having fun, but like all serial killers, what he's doing makes sense to him. torturing, paralyzing people, crucifying people in the desert. That all makes sense to Mick. And it's the same thing with these people. I'm afraid of mobs. I'm afraid of groupthink. I'm afraid of belief systems that get people to do things against really not their own better judgment, but against their own humanity.
Exactly.
You know, they take away the humanity of these victims, but they're also removing humanity from themselves. And that's what I think what scares me about evangelicals.
Yeah.
Who want to go after women, gay people, trans kids. They are, to me, taking themselves out of the human race. They are othering themselves in the cruelest, most dangerous way possible.
Absolutely. It's this wild, unchecked, unrestrained, unself-conscious set of beliefs. It's like a psychosis run rampant, taken to its conclusion. And I get that.
And our belief trumps all. You know, that's you even see it. You even see it in I think even in the abortion rulings right now. I mean, you basically have people in Congress who are basically like, well, I read the Bible and I believe this, and therefore the entire country must bow to what I saw in the Bible. And it's like, dude, that's theocracy. It's like, no, it's not. It's Jesus.
You can't call that a democracy. That's not.
It's also unsustainable.
Yep.
Ugh. So, okay. So I have a film on my list fits in this discussion.
Okay.
And it's called Hereditary. I know a lot of it was a very it was kind of a breakthrough 2018 horror film. And I'll admit that I didn't see it at first because so many people were like, oh my God, and saying, you know, it's amazing, it's incredible. And they were calling it elevated horror, right? Like along the lines of Get Out and things like that. And I was like, honey, horror's been elevated for a while. Like, I don't know why Hollywood's dissing of horror is just such a fucking joke at this point. It's insane. And it's insulting. It's insulting.
Saying elevated horror is like going to a restaurant being charged $75 for a hamburger because
it is.
You know, somebody deconstructed it on
Richard,
the plate or some nonsense like that.
Richard, let me just get the table ready. It's an elevated hamburger.
It's an
elevated to a
Thank
new
you.
level of heights.
Thank
has
you.
Distinct boutique flavors from the most exciting locales on the planet. It's really just American cheese.
Exactly.
Exactly. Well, and to juxtapose that too, it's like, you know, the reasons it was called elevated horror were obviously to appease people who, you know, who disdain horror and who think that horror is a lower art form or a lower film form, and have little experience with horror. Because if you know, don't get me wrong, Hereditary is one of those films that should have won Oscars. Like
Toni Collette
should have, especially Toni Collette. Like, but to say that this, you know, to make up a term to make yourself feel better about calling horror art tells me that you are wildly inexperienced at watching horror films and consuming horror culture, because this has been going on for a while. Anyway, okay, so Hereditary. I didn't see it for a while because of that hype, because that hype kind of made me kind of go, you know what? I bet it's that hamburger with American cheese, you know, like I you know, and not to diss anybody involved in the film, because I knew there were some amazing actors involved in the film and everything like that. So when I finally did see it, I was just, it's one of those films where I had to stop it and get up and walk around and then come back. And to the point that you made earlier on the show about, you know, remembering the endings of films, when I rewatched this film for today's show, I completely misremembered the entire ending of this film. And I think my brain did that to protect me.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think it was like,
I can see that.
My film was like, I'm gonna carry these memories around. I got you, girl. We're just gonna,
We're
those
gonna
are
make
going
that
in
go away.
Exactly. Abracadabra. So Hereditary, it's an amazing film. It's so meticulously shot. It's like, there's no effort in this film is wasted on everything from aesthetics to palettes to blocking to my God, the performances, like, you'll have half moons in your palms watching Toni Collette just go over the deep end. So essentially, and I mean, and you can see this, like everything I said about this film, it's dark, and it's strangely pretty because of its darkness. It's very bizarre. The director, Ari Aster, went on to do Midsummer. So that's kind of, that answers a lot of questions for me.
Yes, another lighthearted film.
Right? Just a little light watching.
Yes.
Oh God, I love it. Anyway, so Toni Collette plays Annie. And when the film begins, Annie's mom has died. And that's the grandmother. And Annie is married to a guy who's a psychologist, and they have 2 kids. They have a daughter and a son. The daughter's younger, son is teenager. Grandma dies. She inherits a bunch of grandma stuff, but grandma was pretty secretive. Like, there were things grandma was up to that they don't really know that much about. And she joins a support group. She goes to the funeral and she's like, I didn't know my mom had this many friends. Like, where'd she get all these friends from? Like, this is weird. And then she joins a support group and starts talking about her relationship a little bit with her mom and things like that. And Annie's whole thing is she creates miniatures, like miniature houses. So like not like doll houses, but like aesthetically, architecturally pleasing and perfect, but they're also very artistic, right? They're like art projects. And she's got a whole room dedicated to doing that. So you've already got this weird, creepy vibe of like, are we going to have some story told through what we're seeing that she's doing with these miniatures, right? So there's always setting up this sort of sense of dread that's going on with the whole thing. Unbeknownst to Annie, while she's at one of the support groups, her mother's grave is desecrated. And the dad just deals with that. He's just like, oh, okay, I guess some vandals broke in and tried to dig her up or something like that. That's terrible. Like, whatever. Okay, let's, I'll take care of that because she's grieving. And the daughter, Charlie, like we see her drop some hints about her strange relationship with the grandmother, where at one point she says, Grandma wished I'd been born a boy.
That creeped me out. That moment really creeped me out. It's like that means more than what she's saying.
Absolutely. And so for the pivotal scene where things really start to kick off for the film, the teenage boy is going to go to a party. He's going to go to, teenage kid party. And the mom is like, take Charlie with you. Just take her with you. And he's like, I don't want to. And she's like, take your younger sister with you. So he takes Charlie with him. They go to the party. He's upstairs getting stoned, doing, kid stuff. And Charlie's downstairs and she eats some chocolate cake. And we realize that she has a severe nut allergy. And she starts to go into anaphylactic shock. She makes it up to his bedroom, not his bedroom, the bedroom he's in. And is like, I feel funny, my throat, I can't swallow. And he's like, oh shit. He grabs her, runs her out to the car, and starts driving to the hospital. As they're on the way to the hospital, Charlie can't breathe, so she rolls the window down and she sticks her head out to get air. He swerves for roadkill, and her head comes off on a pole. I'm sorry, Scotland. I'm sorry. Yeah. I know.
No, don't apologize. I'm here for this. I signed up for this adventure. Please continue.
Okay. As it turns out, this is based on a real accident that happened. And I'll come back to that in a second. He pulls over, he sees what he's done. He completely disassociates, and he's so traumatized. He drives home, parks the car, gets in bed, and goes to sleep. We wake up to the sounds of his mother screaming, finding Charlie in the back of the car. And at some point later, we see a shot of the head that's, after the sun has come up, still on the road, with ants crawling on it.
Covered in ants. The ants really, more than the actual head, the ants, nature getting a hold of it.
Yeah, I wouldn't mention that, but the ants come back later in the film.
Yeah.
So that's all nice. So what then starts happening is basically a family drama of a family that is broken, where Toni Collette is processing her grief, and it's coming out as anger. And the son is so traumatized. He's so completely traumatized that he can only sit there at the dinner table while she goes from being, a bit of a controlling but nice mom to screaming at him, saying it's his fault. And it's so uncomfortable, which, I mean, this film was originally intended to be just a family drama. It wasn't intended to be horror, but apparently halfway through, he decided, no, this is horror. I'm going to go back and start adding in these horror elements. And that makes a lot of sense. Because the family drama is really the strongest part of it. And this is the point where Toni Collette is going over the edge. Like, she's completely going over the edge, and you can sense it. And she goes upstairs and she starts looking through her mom's stuff, and she pulls out a spell book. And you're like, oh, and you realize too that Toni Collette isn't surprised at finding this. Like, this is something she expected. And she looks up and sees the spirit of her dead mother standing in the corner. And she's like, whoa, 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 goes out. And I mean, I don't want to get too into the weeds, but essentially what happens is that in her support group, she makes friends with this woman, Joan. And Joan convinces her to do a seance. And she starts doing seance-y stuff to try and get in contact with Charlie, her daughter. And it starts working. She starts seeing things happening. And she brings in and at this point, she's unraveling too. Like, she's unraveling. And, her husband is like, you can tell he's like, he wants her to check in or get a therapist or something, right? She brings him into the room with Charlie's notebook and starts doing, seance-y stuff, and then starts speaking in her voice. And the dad is like, what the fuck is going on? Because he's a rational man of science, but he's seeing this happen. And the son, his performance is insane, because he becomes a child again, and he's like, mommy, stop. And the way that he's crying sounds like a little boy crying. And you can tell, like, this is what real terror looks like. We become children. We become little babies, and we need that help, And I just got goosebumps remembering that scene because of that. So at that point, really, things start happening that are difficult to explain. And it would be a very long explanation, but after that, people start behaving in possessed ways. And Toni Collette starts deciding that she needs to save her family, save her children, or save Charlie. Like, it all gets mixed up in her head. And at one point, the son is in school, and he's disassociated so much to the point that he's sitting there at his desk in class, and he looks over at a cabinet with glass on it, and it's himself looking back with a different expression on his face. And he stays like that for a while, and then he starts slamming his head on the desk and slamming it and slamming it. And I found out reading some of the backstory about this film. So he apparently was so deep into his method, he actually said, I might break my nose to the director. And the director was like, no, we're going to make the desk foam. But they didn't make all of it foam. They didn't make the bottom part of it foam. So he actually got really fucking hurt in that scene. He dislocated his jaw. So the performance that you see, and I'm glad I didn't know this before this rewatch. The performance that you see, he bangs his head on the desk until everything comes apart, and he ends up on the floor, and he's got blood streaming down his face and streaming down his nose. It's his real blood. And his leg is swollen, and his ankle is puffy, and all of that was real.
Jesus.
So
didn't know that. I
didn't either. And the actor later said that film really, really messed him up, like emotionally and physically. Like he went all the way. He went all the way. So he ends up in the hospital. The father gets him. Toni Collette is trying to solve her own mystery, but she's crazier and crazier. She starts going through her mother's photo books. She finds a photo book with pictures of her mother with Joan, the woman that convinced her to do the seance. And she's like, what the fuck? Joan never told me she was friends with my mom. What the hell is going on? And so she tries to go to Joan's house, and that doesn't work. And she comes back, and she's like, and I may be misremembering this. Pardon me. This film is traumatizing. She goes upstairs. She's like, what is that smell? What's going on? She pulls down the attic. She goes upstairs, and there's flies everywhere. And in the corner with all of these ritual items is her mother's body with the head missing. And she's like, and she like goes downstairs, runs into the husband who just brought the kid home from the hospital. I may be misremembering this, but she's like, up there, like it's up there. And he's like, honey, you need a break. Like, he doesn't believe her. He thinks she's just crazy now. But then he goes up and he sees it. So we know it's real. And yeah, I know. Toni Collette is in the meantime, like trying to burn, the notebook that had all of the mediumistic seance or, connection-y stuff in it. And the first time she tries to burn it, her own shirt catches on fire until she puts the book out, that sort of a thing. And she's losing it. It's nighttime. The kid gets put in bed. He's fucked up. He's got, nose thing on his face and the whole thing. Toni Collette is ranting. She's insane. She's in lunatic space. And she's like, we have to go. We have to destroy this book. We have to get out of here. We have to, and she's just like going and going and going and going. And she's like, I have to save you. I have to save this family. And he's just like, the dad is just like, wow, okay, fine. And he takes the book and he throws it into the fireplace, and he bursts into flames. And she's just standing there watching him burn. And again, her performance is unreal. What's funny too is that Toni Collette before this film had said she only wanted to do lighter films, but saw this script and was like, I want to do that. Dear. Yeah, right. So the father burns to death. And then we see the son in bed, and he's like waking up. It's nighttime. He's waking up. And I think it's like he thinks he hears something, or he thinks he sees something. Again, my mind is blocking a bunch of this stuff out. And it's this scene. This is a scene this is one of the scenes in the film that a lot of people can't unsee. And it's one of the scariest scenes in the film, because he's in bed and it's dark, and it's all lit in dark and blue tones and things like that. And his room is completely dark. And he gets up and he sits up and he looks around, and his door is open. And then we see, coming slightly into more light and more focus with the camera, I think pulling back a little bit, up in the corner of the room is his mother. She's like a spider up on the wall. Yeah. And then he turns to look, and you see her scuttle out over the ceiling. I'm getting goosebumps so bad. And run out. And then he looks back that way, and he goes downstairs. And as he's going downstairs, we're seeing that there are some people outside, and there might be more people in the house, but we can't really tell. And he finds his father's body. And as he's doing that, big wide shot behind him, we see his mother up on the ceiling, just watching him. And at that point, that's when he runs. He books and runs, and he runs, and he gets to where the attic is, and he pulls down the ladder, and he gets up the stairs, and he pulls it shut right before his mother gets there, and you can hear her banging on the ceiling and banging on the ceiling, and it's like this really fast bang, 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 bang. And when we see him up here and we hear that, and then we get the shot of what's actually happening outside the trap door, and it's Toni Collette on all fours on the ceiling, and she's not knocking, she's banging her head. And it's cut, so it's so fast that it's so fucking scary. And I did not expect that. I didn't expect that at all. I don't want to traumatize Scotland too much more by explaining what happens.
We're almost there. We're
No,
almost
get
there.
it. I'm living through this. It's good.
Okay. So he's up in the attic now. His dad is dead downstairs. And that's when he sees Grandma's body, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
He looks up, and Toni Collette is in the room with him, and she's levitated. She's above him. She's just like hanging above him with piano wire, and she's beheading herself.
Oh,
And he's like, fuck this. And he jumps out the window. I mean, I would too.
go kid, get out of there.
Right?
Like,
Right. And then
what?
see, this is the ending that I keep misremembering the bridging sections of. But
Well,
there's
go ahead.
there's a basically like a tree house outside, and it's lit up. And he's
Mhm.
like, why is the treehouse lit up? So he goes there. He goes in there,
Oh no.
and there is basically like a pedestal with his sister's head on it with a crown. There is his mother's body and his grandmother's body without their heads, knelt down in worship of it. And the room is filled with all of these older, I remember them as being like sort of older hippie vibe cultists. And Joan goes and takes the crown off of Charlie and puts it on him and says something to the effect of, Charlie, she fixed your body, or Charlie, she fixed your gender.
And he is now
What?
the embodiment of Paimon, the god
Right.
Paimon,
The god that they worship.
the god they were worshiping and trying to bring back.
Yeah. And they're like, you are our god, we will do anything for you. And he just kind of goes along with it. And we realize at that point that he probably died when he jumped out the window.
Mm.
And they brought him back with Charlie in his body. So it's, a little light watching. We find out that the grandmother was basically like Queen Laith.
Mm-hmm.
She was the queen of their
She was the queen of
cult.
the cult, yeah.
Yeah. So
And I mean, I got the feeling that she'd been manipulating the family the whole time. Like,
oh, probably. Yeah, probably. And we don't know like Toni Collette's character, we don't know how complicit she was,
mhm.
because it's pretty clear that she's the one that desecrated her mother's grave at one point. So it's it's powerfully terrifying for
Yeah.
just everything about the way the scenes are set up. Everything about what we see is so horrifying and so shocking that even if you know about it going into the film, the performances and the meticulousness of everything, and
Mhm.
it's gonna get you every time. Like every
Yeah.
time. Like I rewatched it and I was like, I had to again get up and walk around and breathe.
Yeah.
And like look away for a minute
Yeah.
and things like that, because it's so intense. It's so intense. And there is some blood and gore in it, but it's not really bloody and gory necessarily. Like it's not the torture porn stuff or anything like that. Like it's again, it's about the things you can't see.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just, that film is powerfully terrifying to me for so many reasons.
Well,
yeah.
I think one of the things that got me about it, that I think maybe got you about it too, and I think you've been kind of talking about, is it's shot like a regular movie. It's not shot like a horror movie. It's shot like a family drama.
It's shot like a drama. Yeah, like a family drama.
There's
For
nothing
sure.
there's nothing sensational about the shooting of the movie and the
Yeah.
characterizations. These are regular people falling apart, and that's what it looks like. There's
Yeah.
nothing until the very end. You're not getting any kind of horror content, really. You're just getting a
Yeah.
family.
Well-
And this actually ties into another movie I want to talk about, but we can
Oh,
take a break.
Yeah, I would
Yeah,
love
we
to
should
take a
have a
break and-
little. We should have a little bit of a breathing room here, because like the retelling of that film, like I'm sitting here riveting. Like what?
that film will fuck you up. I will really quickly say there's like a little bit of gallows humor about that film. I read one fun fact about it, which is that when the film was coming out, in an Australian theater that was showing Peter Rabbit, a family film, mistakenly showed the trailer for Hereditary before Peter Rabbit.
No.
And it was families grabbing their kids and running out screaming. Like that actually happened.
That's perfect.
I mean, what a promo though. Like what a promo. Just like just sit outside that theater with a, a little phone, just capture it and just be like, it's that good.
No.
Like,
oh my God.
Well, on the other hand, Ari Aster may have created 100 new horror fans from that moment.
Yep, more kids raised by horror.
More kids raised by horror.
oh wow. Okay, everybody, we're gonna have a little quick break, and you'll hear from something or other. It doesn't really matter. We'll be back.
We'll be back.
And we're back from the break. I've had my
Yay.
time to
Hello.
take some anti-anxiety medication.
Oh.
I've gotten at least half my new beverage gone already. So I think we're ready to talk about some more terrifying movies from you two. I look forward to the sleepless nights that I probably
Oh,
will
dear.
incur from the recounting of these. So
Oh my God.
yeah, no, it's good. It's good. But I think, Richard, it's your turn. Take it away. I'm ready, I think.
All right. Well, coincidentally, I didn't realize it at the time. The last two films I have are both Japanese. I love Japanese horror, and these are two very different kinds of films. But I do think my first film ties in with Hereditary in terms of it being a domestic drama. And it's a film called Audition by Takashi Miike. It's from 1999.
I didn't mean to giggle, but like thinking of Audition as a domestic drama, I'm just like,
Well, the way
Wow.
it's shot, it really is. I mean, I think it's like Hereditary in that if you look at the camera work, if you look at the lighting, if you look
you're
at
like, it's a family film.
yes. But he shoots
What?
it again like a domestic drama. Like, here's just our daily lives and here's our troubles. So there's no like there are no scary shots and zoom lenses or anything like that. It's just shot like, here are our lives. And then horrible things happen. But Audition is interesting to me because it's really the movie that put Takashi Miike on the map in the US. It played all over at art houses all over the country. I saw it at the Castro in San Francisco.
Nice.
And it caused a bit of a sensation for the film itself, for the ending, but especially it has one of the great jump scares in movie history. I've never seen it in a theater where people didn't scream at one moment. And it's an earned moment. It's not like a cheap, like you open the door and the cat scares you. It's a real jump scare, and I admire it. The movie is based on a novel by Ryu Murakami, and he was the author of, and he's not the same Murakami like Haruki Murakami that we all know and love. This is Ryu Murakami, the kind of punk, more punk of the Murakamis. And he wrote off books such as Coin Locker Babies and Tokyo Decadence, which is also an interesting film.
Such a great film.
Yeah. And what I was saying before, it's most of Audition is not scary. And that's what's really interesting to me. Miike had done a lot of gangster stuff. He'd done a lot of really sensationalist cinema. But when it came to Audition, he calmed down everything in his style. It's the story of a widowed middle-aged man, Shigeru Oyama, who's looking for a new wife. And he goes about it in the worst way you can imagine. With the help of a producer friend, film producer friend, he and the producer stage mock auditions for young women to play the part of a wife. Now, during this, Shigeru falls for one of the applicants, Asami Yamazaki. He and the producer, though, they can't really track down any of her references or much about her past, and some of them are listed as missing. But Shigeru doesn't care at this point, and he pursues her. He's just really smitten in that middle-aged, lonely man kind of way, who just reeks of desperation. And when they finally get to a hotel,
big middle-aged divorcee vibes, right?
Yes. When they finally go to a hotel together, Asami gets Shigeru to pledge his eternal, undying love for her.
As you do.
Which he does eagerly. Now, along the way, there are more clues that things aren't 100% right with Asami, but again, Shigeru ignores all the signals and becomes more involved with her and finally brings her back to the house. Now, he does have a son, but the son is off being a young man somewhere. So he's out partying with friends. So Shigeru is back at the house with Asami. They're having a nice evening. She gives him a drink, and like Wolf Creek, she roofies him. And when he wakes up, Asami is there. He can't move. And she begins to torture and dismember him. And like the domestic drama style of the rest of the movie, the shooting is very simple and very realistic. It's very quiet and not sensationalist at all. Asami speaks quietly and happily as she saws Shigeru apart. Sound plays a very important part here because we mostly just get glimpses of the gore. We do see her, remove one of his feet. We get a good shot of that. Now, luckily for Shigeru, his son arrives home before Asami can completely take him apart. And they get into a fight. Asami ends up falling down the staircase with her neck broken. And you think she's dead at first, but she is not. And what she repeats is part of what they said at the hotel together, that she simply wanted him to love her eternally because basically she was a lonely person and she didn't want him to ever leave her. And this was her response to being afraid of being alone. She reminds me of killers like Dennis Nielsen and Jeffrey Dahmer, who also killed out of loneliness and tried to make their victims into companions who would never leave. And it's definitely a middle-aged guy story, but I think everybody who's ever been single and lonely kind of asks themselves a question at the end of the film, like, how have I presented or misrepresented myself to someone on a date? Or if you were ever on a dating site, like, what did I say to make this person think I'm who I'm pretending to be, and they're pretending who they want to be?
Well, it raises the specter too of questions we should ask ourselves, like, how far am I willing to go to not be alone, and why am I so desperate to not be alone? And am I crossing boundaries by what I'm doing? Like weighing that fear of loneliness versus moral and ethical choices and dilemmas. And yeah, it's I'm so happily single and not I'm not lonely at all.
Yeah.
And part of the not, like, at this point I look back and I'm like, I wonder why I was so desperate when I was single previously. Like, I don't understand why. Like, I'm very comfortable being on my own, and before I wasn't. So I can see that question of, like, because I made bad choices when I was in that state of being desperate to not be alone. Yeah. I made really bad choices, and I think that's kind of definitely at the crux of this film of like, how, I mean, obviously she's, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, but like, she just went all the way there.
But so did he. He invited her in. And, he started off the entire relationship with a massive lie with the audition itself. Yeah. And I don't really think he thought about anything that's going on. I mean, what got him into part of his trouble is he is not a person prone to self-reflection.
Right.
And people in that state probably aren't, but I also think middle-aged guys really
divorced
feel
ones.
That. Yeah.
That loneliness, though, that feels like so inherently human that, like, everybody has that. Like, and so that's interesting. That kind of makes that story seem like, aside from the award for, it sounds like, best gross ASMR.
Oh, I know. Seriously, ew.
It seems like it kind of comes into that realm of just like touching on the fear of loneliness, which I love Japanese cinema for this reason of how much they like really poke at these human things. That's fascinating to me.
And like I said the sound during that final dismemberment scene is so unsettling, and part of it is Asami the whole time is just making these little tiki 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 noises. It's her little happy sound as she's taking him apart.
Oh, she's so happy.
She's so happy. She has him. She has him forever now.
Yeah, you won't find those sounds on any sleep apps, that's for sure.
It would be I think it'd be a great ringtone. Just
oh, that is so you. Oh my god.
Oh my gosh. It's okay for everyone following along at home. I will have some sort of suggestion at the end of these films for something cozy and comfy to watch.
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm gonna change this up with my next selection. And my next selection is like, God, it still has scenes that get me. Oh my God. It's in our first episode, we talked about Hill House and Hell House. So I think if viewers saw that episode, then you're well familiar with the discussion that we've had about both of those. And I deliberately didn't talk about The Haunting of Hill House, the 2018 Netflix series. And I need to talk about that now because it scared the crap out of me when I first watched it. And then it scared the crap out of me again when I just rewatched it.
Mm.
And it's funny because I talk to other friends that I share horror tastes with, and they're like, I didn't like it. It was too obvious, or, oh, you know, blah, blah, this or that. But on rewatch, I realized that it is so completely complicated. Like it's a season. It's a season, right? So it's several episodes. And there are things in it that I thought happened in just one episode, but actually happen across several episodes.
Mhm.
And there's a time overlay that happens as well. The premise is, you know, it's based on the Shirley Jackson novel, fairly, the Hill House book. And the story opens with, I mean, basically it's two stories being told at once. It's the story of the Crane family getting this big, beautiful house, moving into it, intending to make it a fixer-upper and flip it. And at the same time, we're being told the story of this family much later, where they are broken and broken apart. And the meat of the sandwich is unpacking everything that happened in between those two times. And it's a really brilliant way of juxtaposing the storytelling, because we get scenes where, like, we encounter the family in its adult state, and its adult state is that the mother is dead, the father is completely estranged to the family. Hugh is the older brother. There's 5 kids. Hugh is the older brother. He wrote a book. He's the total gaslighter among all of them. He doesn't believe in ghosts or any of that crap, right? And he basically wrote a book and made $1 bazillion based on the events at Hell House, right? Or Hill House, sorry. And then there's Luke. He's the younger brother who actually saw ghosts in the house when he was a kid, but no one believed him. And he's grown up to become basically a drug addict. Like, he's a fuck up. He's constantly trying to check out of reality. Theo is the sister who's the empath. Empath rather. She is a social worker, like a caseworker. She wears gloves. Her mother gave her the gloves, saying your grandmother also had this gift where she basically, like, she can get readings from touching people about what's going on with them. And sometimes they're strong and sometimes they're not. And so she's a social worker. Nell is the youngest, and she's sort of like, she's the sweetie of the bunch, right? And she has sleep paralysis. Like, we meet her when she's coping with sleep paralysis, where she is trapped and she can't move. She can't wake up. She's in bed and she can't call for help or anything like that, which is already scary enough as it is. And then there's Shirley, who's kind of the common sense, kind of the bitch sister of the family, if you will, who grew up to become an undertaker. And basically, over the course of this, for me, the centerpiece of this is the story of Nell, the younger sister, right? So we get that this family moved into this house. It was completely haunted. Crazy shit happened. We don't know exactly what. The mother died, things like that. And we start unpacking the story of Nell, the one who has sleep paralysis. And we learn that as a child, when she was in the house, she would see this terrifying ghost, like absolutely terrifying ghost. And scary things happen to the family while they're there, but it's particularly Nell who is seeing this specter that she calls the bent neck lady. And the bent neck lady is a scary monster. Like, it's done really well. And in one scene, little Nell in the past is asleep on the couch in the house, and she wakes up and she can't move, and the bent neck lady is hanging over her with this like twisted neck and like doing this thing with her mouth, like trying to talk maybe. And yeah, and she starts screaming, bent neck lady, bent neck lady. And this happens to her a lot when she's in the house, and it happens to her a little bit after that, but then it kind of stops happening. And I think it then is basically replaced by her sleep paralysis. Like, that's kind of like the common sense response to it. But we reach a point in this broken, fallen apart family as adults where she starts seeing the bent neck lady again. And we're not exactly sure what triggered her seeing the bent neck lady again. But we get to this place where it's a dark night, it's rainy, it's stormy, and she calls her dad and she says, I'm seeing her again. And he's like, okay, because he takes this shit seriously. And he's like, okay, where are you? And she's like, I'm in bed, daddy. And he's like, okay, well, you're going to call your brother, or call blah, 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 blah. And she's like, okay. And we pan out and we see that she's sitting in her car in front of Hill House. And as she's looking at Hill House, all the lights go on. And she puts the phone down and she goes in the house. And when she goes in the house, she walks into her past. She walks into seeing her family all together again. And they're happy to see her. And she sees her mom, who she misses. And her mom is like, and the house looks exactly the way that it did. And when we're seeing it from her perspective, we're seeing the house being beautiful and like it was back then. And then we occasionally get these faraway shots where we see that she's in the house as it is now. And it's decrepit and it's empty and it's broken and it's scary and it's dark and it's full of cobwebs and it looks dangerous. And her mom brings her upstairs and says, got to put your dress on. We got to get ready. And Nell goes into her mom's room, pulls out her wedding dress and puts her dress on. And her mom comes in and is like, hurry, we can't keep everyone waiting. And Nell goes downstairs and her whole family is there. And honestly, like, I kind of teared up when I saw the scene because everyone is so strained and so broken at that point. But that is like, for her, the moment of love. It's where they love her. And she's loved and she's not alone. And they, her older brother's like, he's here. And she sees her husband. And we find out in an earlier episode that her husband died on the floor in their bedroom. And she had sleep paralysis and couldn't get up and help him. And she sees him and she's just like, you're just like, okay, this house, this is where she wants to be. This is her place. This is all the things she loves that make her feel safe. And this house is doing that to her. And her husband comes and they start dancing. And they dance around the house and they dance around the back of the staircase where there's all these marble statues. It's a big old grand house. They're dancing around the statuary and we occasionally get a faraway shot, and she's dancing by herself through the house. And we go back around and then suddenly she's standing at the bottom of the spiral staircase, which is a spiral staircase up to a room in the house that no one could find a key for when they were younger. Like they were always the kids were always scheming to try and get into that room because no one had a key that worked. And she gets up to the top of the spiral staircase and her mom is there. And she's like looking around and she looks down and she realizes that her hands are on rope, and she kind of backs away a little bit. And she turns around and her mother is there, and her mother takes off her locket and says, I want to give this to you. And she's like, Mommy, really? And the mom puts the locket on, and then we pan up and we see that Nell is on the other side of the banister with the rope around her neck. And I know we talk about content warnings in the beginning a little bit, and we have notes on the show and stuff like that, but content warning, suicide. So her mom pushes her, and we know her mom is dead. So we know this is the house. As Nell falls, she's hung. We see her drop and her hair come down. We see her neck bend, and then she drops through the floor. And she drops back in time above herself as a child on the couch. And then she drops through the floor again to another moment in time where her childhood self sees bent neck lady and is screaming, bent neck lady, and drops again and is at the foot of her own bed as a child. And so we find out that, yeah, it's really messed up. It's an incredible reveal. And it's also really, really scary because the ghost is her. And that's one of the scariest parts of the series for me. But really, truly, for me, the most frightening part of this is the open casket funeral that they have for her.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the moment when the family is all brought back together for the first time, and they have to deal with each other, and they really don't like each other. There's blame, there's anger, there's guilt, they're fighting. And I believe it's the second episode, because she dies very early on. The second episode is the funeral, the open casket funeral, and there's a storm raging. And the family, the family is, the undertaker and Theo, the empath, are there, and Theo's getting drunk. She's like, I am numbing the fuck out. Like, the Shirley, the undertaker, is like, you should cut back on, you should slow down, and it opens. I had to go back and read about it. And so I know that it isn't a true one shot, but it's filmed like it's one continuous shot,
Mm-hmm.
almost the entire episode. And it's unbearable. The tension is unbearable because when they're arguing in the beginning and Theo's drinking too much, it's just the camera comes in, follows, there's conversation, then the camera picks someone and continues with them on to the next thing. And it's already really amazing to watch, and it's already very unsettling. And as the family's showing up and bickering and things like that, they're starting to confess things to each other and reveal things to each other about what they did or didn't see in the house. And the older brother is still gaslighting everybody about whether or not ghosts exist and things like that. And there are these shots where you're starting to realize that you're kind of focusing a little bit on what's going on with the casket in the background behind them. There's a lot of scenes like that where you're like, I'm going to see something, and you're looking at details and you're getting worried about what you're going to see back there. And it's very intense. And at a certain point, they're yelling, they're arguing, they're like, fuck you, they're mad, they're breaking up again, basically, as a family. And Shirley goes back into where Nell is in the coffin and says, all right, which one of you did this? This isn't funny. Who did this? Which one of you did this? And the family comes in, and we turn to the shot of Nell in the casket, and she's got buttons on her eyes. Mm-hmm. And one button, it's filmed so perfectly, like one button shines the whole time, and you're like not sure why. And that begins basically this long night of basically terror in the funeral home, where the father, walks down a corridor and he walks into the past, and we start seeing more stories told about what happened to these kids and what happened to this family. The scene eventually, as we learn more about everything, the scene eventually ends when once again they're fighting and they're angry at each other, and shit's falling apart once again, and the coffin just falls on the ground, and everyone stops, and they become human again. They stop being angry and they become human again for a moment. And you realize that was Nell's power, right? Was that she made them human. And they go and they kneel, and like one of them holds her hand, and Shirley like straightens her hair, and she's like, I have to fix her makeup. I have to say, it's one of the most effective series I've ever seen in terms of powerful storytelling, really, really smart and gifted storytelling, and just epically feeling frightened without. There are jump scares, but you're afraid without the jump scares in this one. Mm-hmm. It's beautifully done. It's beautifully done. So that's That's mine.
Mike Flanagan is really a master of this stuff.
He really is.
The miniseries horror. I mean, he's done some good features, but Midnight Mass,
Oh, so good.
this, House of Usher.
Mm-hmm.
He really, really knows how to create tension over a long period of time and tell an interesting story with good characters along the way.
Incredible performances. My God.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that was mine.
All right. Well, my last one is a movie. It's kind of obscure, so I hope people don't get mad at me for choosing it. You can find DVDs of this on places like eBay. It does stream on places like Shudder sometimes. So if you look for it, you might be able to find it. And it's a 2005 movie called Haze by Shinya Tsukamoto.
I've never seen it.
It's like I said, it's kind of obscure. I'd seen a lot of his movies before I'd even heard of this one. I just stumbled across it. So for people who don't know, Shinya Tsukamoto is most famous as the director of Tetsuo the Iron Man, that early black and white cyberpunk movie.
Yeah.
What scared the hell out of me with Haze is that I'm claustrophobic. And most of the movie takes place in a very confined space.
Yikes.
And apparently Tsukamoto got the idea for it from the tunneling scenes in The Great Escape. And it's a short movie. It's only 49 minutes, but it is rough and visually hardcore and relentless.
Wow.
So an unnamed man played by Tsukamoto himself wakes up in a small, confined concrete space with no idea who he is or how he got there. He's bleeding from a wound in his stomach. The movie is one of those great, simple concepts of him trying to navigate his way out of a labyrinth and figure out why and how he got there.
Wow.
So he drags himself through what feels like a concrete grave to places that are more like torture chamber. He flashes on images of men being tortured and killed and a screaming woman in a face of dismembered bodies.
Yeah.
He has flashbacks of a woman repeating, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry." But you don't know if these are memories or more hallucinations. Eventually, when he's deep in this sort of underground watery section, he finds a woman. She doesn't know anything more than he does, but she's convinced they can get out through a nearby river. So she finally convinces him to follow her. They swim through this fetid, filthy stream full of body parts.
Ew.
And when they reach a dead end, he tries to get her to go back, but she remembers something from her past. She wanted to go somewhere in her life, but someone captured and imprisoned her. And braver than the man, she dives into the river to keep going under this abutment. Eventually he follows, but again, he has flashbacks of, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry." Soon after, alone, he climbs up a concrete shaft by himself. He can't find the woman. He pushes away a heavy slab over his head. And what he finds is he finds himself in an ordinary living room. And once again, he crawls out of this space. It's as much trouble getting out of the hole as it was to move through it. And what he finds is a bloody hand with he's wounded, and there's a bloody hand around a table, and he crawls over to that person, and he finds a woman, and she's almost dead, and he gets a phone finally, and he calls for help. And then we flash forward to when he's an old man, and he's remembering watching fireworks with the dead woman that he saw in the room. And you realize what this whole story has been, what the whole horror has been, is a simple story of a man grappling with a mental breakdown after the suicide of his partner.
Yeah.
She's been apologizing, but at the same time, the woman has been saying that she felt imprisoned by somebody and she wanted to get out.
And he couldn't follow her.
Yeah.
Oh shit, that is deep. Sorry. I'm like,
It was.
No, it's okay.
It's a very unsettling movie.
Yeah, it is. And
as I said, it's short. It's short.
Yeah.
It's 49 minutes. So it's a real gut punch.
Yeah, it's a lot to pack in.
oh,
I think I can see why that scared you.
It scared me a lot. And to his credit, Tsukamoto played the man. So he was in, he had them put him in tiny spaces. He had them put him in little tubes where he, almost drowned, full of dismembered body parts. So he tortured himself to get the film done, and credit to him for that.
Wow. Well, I have some lighter fare for us.
Oh, good.
Sort of. I'm coming in. I'm sliding in. I'm sliding in with the last film.
You got the last film.
I got the last film. And yeah, this one scared me. So, and it still scares me. It's a found footage film, and it's called Host. And it's from 2020. And it's hands down one of my favorite horror films ever. Like ever. And it's so brilliant. Oh my God. It's like the film you just talked about. It's very short. It is 1 hour long.
Yeah.
1 hour. It is
that.
The exact length of a Zoom meeting, a free Zoom meeting at the time. And the entire film takes place over Zoom. And now, before you check out and go, oh God, that's boring, or oh, I'm so sick of Zoom meetings, you have to know that this film, the setting of the film, it takes place when we were all in shelter in place in the very beginning stages of COVID-19, our ongoing pandemic. And so it's completely relatable. And for me, it was one of the first, it connected with me so hard at first, especially because it was one of the only things that I had seen, and still that I've seen, that acknowledge we lived through that time and how we had to live during that time and what it felt like to be trying so hard to stay connected with each other, and the reasons that we were doing that. And Hollywood has, and many other, like indie film, everything has just basically still pretends like there's no pandemic, still pretends like none of this shit happened at all. And so many of us feel so gaslighted and so angry about that. Like, no, nothing, we expected, during all the shutdowns and everything that happened for that period, a lot of us were eager to see our experiences reflected when everyone could safely go back to work in Hollywood and film and TV and things like that. And no one did. And I feel like that did psychological damage, like, to a lot of people everywhere, and it still does. So for me, I immediately connected with Host because I was like, holy shit, here's someone who's living in the same world with the rest of us, who isn't trying to pretend like this isn't happening or didn't happen, and is actually going to give me something I love, which is a horror film about this time. Like, thank you for the coping mechanism, man. Like, it's that mental health and horror thing where you're just like, yeah, like I want to see my experiences reflected, but I want the thrill ride of horror. I want to be seen as someone who likes weird, different types of cinema that might not be palatable to everybody, like, and weird occult shit, and like Jeopardy, like with legitimate stakes in storytelling, like all of these things that I find horror is good for my mental health, right? Teaching me survival skills, or letting me work out, like, like, oh yeah, okay, so if you're ever in that situation with an axe, don't do that, stuff like that, right? So I immediately, like, Host immediately resonated with me because it's during, what some countries had lockdown. A lot of countries really didn't have lockdown. Like, we had shelter in place in the United States. But this takes place in the UK, and they did have a lockdown. So everyone's in their rooms and stuff. And this is about 6 friends that basically have a Zoom meeting every week to connect and stay connected and talk shit. And you can tell that they're like, English kids that are, probably like college age now or something like that. And they get together once a week, and they have this thing, and they hang out and they drink. And, there's the different personalities among them all. And it's fantastic. Except for this one particular meeting, one of them wants to do a seance. I know you're like, oh, already a bad idea. I know where this is going to go. And so the host of the meeting convinces everybody, look, I've got this medium. She's agreed to come in our Zoom meeting and do a seance with us. Can you guys keep it together? Like, and they're like, oh yeah, the spirit world, blah, 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 blah. And they're like all joking about it. And they're like, let's have a drinking game. Every time she says the astral plane, we have to take a drink. And the host is like, come on, you guys, like, can you just not be obvious about this? And they're like, okay. And so they bring in the medium, and she's like, and when you get to the astral plane, and they're like, taking a sip off the camera, and like, yeah, exactly. So you can tell that, like, one of them is concerned. She's kind of the scared one, but the rest of them don't really take it all that seriously. And so she starts the seance, and one of them, the best friend of the host, starts saying, oh God, I feel something. Like, I feel something. It's Jack. Oh God, I feel something on my neck. And she describes, again, content warning for suicide. She describes this friend she had in college that killed himself. And then something happens behind the medium, and we lose her connection. And then the girl who was just feeling the thing on her neck is like, I made that shit up. I made that up. And the host is like, why did you do that? Like, she specifically said not to mock the spirits. Like, what the hell? And that's when weird shit starts happening in the backgrounds of everyone's Zoom meetings. Like, that's when, like, the oven turns on behind one girl, and you can see it while she's talking, and you're like, the oven's on behind you. Why isn't anyone telling her that? And the way this is done is that it plays with all of the things about Zoom and Zoom meetings that could possibly be turned into horror. So, as basically this malevolent spirit, they begin then trying to break the spell and get rid of the malevolent spirit, because it becomes pretty clear it's a malevolent spirit. Like, one of the girls gets dragged away from the camera in her chair and falls over. And that happens very suddenly and very fast. And that's when you're like, oh no, this is actually happening. It's not just an oven light that went on or something like that. And so they're trying to do all these things to basically break the chain of this spell. And the spirit is basically like manifesting in ways that one would fuck with a Zoom meeting. So one of the girls, she's like, I hear something in the house, and they're all on their laptops and they're all on their phones, and they're like, okay, we'll go with you. Like, let's go, let's walk over there and take a look together. And she, walks over to the door, and she's like, I think I hear something come up in the attic. And they're like, okay, just put your phone up there. Just put your phone up there. We'll tell you if we see anything. And we see someone hanging in the corner in the attic. And she doesn't. So she comes back down, and she gets back on her at her laptop at her desk in her bedroom. And earlier in the film, she was joking about the fact that she had a fake Zoom background of her getting up and walking by. So it looked like she was in the shot. And really quickly, we see her face slammed on the desk, and then her background comes on. So we see her walk by in the background, and that goes on a loop. And that was one of the first scenes where I had to get up and walk around, right? Because it's like, who did that? What is going on here? Yeah. So things spiral out of control. They can't break the chain from the spirit world. And eventually we see nearly everyone murdered on camera in some outrageous way. But I think the scariest scene for me, like the truly scariest scene, so there's one of the girls, she's kind of that typical cute girl, like she's blonde and adorable, and she's always like, she's the one on the meeting that always has like the bunny ears, like the little, you know, like the filters, you know, so she has like little bunny ears or bunny nose or like whatever and stuff like that. And there's a spirit in her house, and she like pans her laptop around, and the way that we know that is that it does that on something that we can't see that's standing in the corner.
Yeah.
So we know it found a face. And she's like, fuck. And she's in a studio, and she like goes to her kitchen, and she grabs a bag of flour, and she sprinkles the flour all over the floor, which is smart, right? Because, you know, can't see it. So, and then we see footsteps in the flour coming toward her. She screams, and I know I have goosebumps again. She screams and runs and gets under the covers in her bed. And she's like crying and crying. And we only like see her little eye. And she's like crying and crying and crying. And I mean, that scene, like that just the filter on the imaginary face in the corner has made me never really want to use filters like that ever. Because I don't want them to see something behind me that I don't know is in the room with me.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, thank you, filmmakers of Host, for giving me real, true pandemic horror.
Yeah.
But like horror that like I can relate to in like every way. And incredible performances. Every single actor did all of the shots themselves. They did all the lighting themselves, everything. Like it's fantastic. It's so good, and it's such a talented group of people.
I mean, they basically shot the whole thing with their laptops and iPhones, right? I mean, that's the entire film.
Yeah, I love that.
No.
I actually heard about this just in kind of like the independent filmmaking world and stuff like that, because of how brilliantly novel they went about like putting it together, like in the same way that Blair Witch did. Like that was novel.
Yep.
And yes,
I may have not watched it because it sounds like it would terrify the living heck out of me, but
reasons.
Yeah, for real, I spend too much of my life on Zoom, so there's that. I can't traumatize myself that badly.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned Blair Witch, because our next episode is about found footage horror. And we will be talking about the Blair Witch Project. And I was tempted to save Host for that, but I feel for me, we'll talk about it some more, and the way that it was made, and why it's so fucking effective.
Yeah.
But yeah, our next episode, found footage. We're going to Blair Witch country, kids.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So those were deeply terrifying. I have an entire list here that I've filled out that is just stuff will put on a nice little block list in my little moviescape to make sure that I'm not completely tortured. So thank you both. I deeply appreciate you. Yeah, I'm curious to hear like any more you want to talk about what's coming up next, or what anything that you're looking forward to, or anything like that.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so we were talking about like what we're excited about next.
I'm so excited about some things that I want to talk about.
Tell me.
Okay. Okay. So this one, Scotland, you might not be as excited about because you may not be familiar with it. But there was a horror film that came out recently called Megan, about just a doll basically that comes to life, and murder doll. And it's so fun and weird. And also it's not particularly scary, but it's just, for me, it's a great film. I just found out that Megan 2.0 is going to be made. So
that's great.
I'm excited. It's the same cast, the same director. They're expecting it out in 2025. So I'm really looking forward to that, because creepy murder dolls are just so much fun. Like, And this, yeah, Megan and Megan's little dance, Megan's creepy doll dance is like the best. Okay, this is so they're remaking Blade, right? Marvel's doing Blade. So
I'm sad about this.
I've got, I mean, we all have reservations, right? Because Marvel, at least amongst our conversations, Marvel has really screwed up some things that we loved. Like they seem afraid to take risks and out of ideas, and they're just regurgitating like a lot of the same tired stuff from the same people, and we're all kind of over it, right? So they're doing Blade, so that makes us worried, right? But I found out that there's a new director on it. It's Van Damage, and he did Lovecraft Country. Which I loved, and I wish there had been more of. I mean, I love the book, and I love the series as well. Big fan. So that made me kind of go, and I found out that the female lead cast in it is Mia Goth.
Oh, that's cool. That's
which
a good choice.
I love her. Like, I love her to pieces. She would axe murder me to pieces, I'm sure. And that would be her love, which I will gladly accept. So that kind of made me go, I might actually be looking forward to that. I mean, at the very least, I'm going to see it for sure. Like, I have to. Like, it's
definitely
completely required reading or seeing, sorry. And then so I discovered this film that's coming out, and it's going to be out this year, and it's going to be out in time for Christmas, and I'm so excited. It's called There's Something in the Barn.
Something in the Barn?
Something in the Barn, and it's a horror comedy about an American family that inherits their uncle's estate in Norway. So they go there to, inherit the estate and live in Norway and, be amongst the Norway people. But one of the taglines for the film is respect your elf. Respect your elf. Apparently there's like an evil elf, like Christmas style elf that lives in the barn, and things just go shit crazy sideways from there. The trailer is so fun looking.
Oh, great.
Like, it's just completely the kind of thing that you're gonna want to get together with your horror friends and watch for sure. It's going to be great Christmas viewing.
We could just sit around and watch that in a barn to make it extra creepy.
That would be great.
Yeah, I'm in.
That would be great.
Maybe we'll stream that. We'll see.
Okay. All right, Richard, what about you? What you looking forward to?
Well, one of the things is an older film. Well, actually, a collection of older films. Arrow Video, who do amazing collections. They're sort of the Criterion Collection for crazy people. And Arrow is doing a Hellraiser box set called Quartet of Torment. It's the first 4 Hellraiser movies with a lot of supplements and extras. But the thing that really makes me interested is the film Hellraiser Bloodline, which is the film in which we actually go all the way back to the 18th century and meet Le Marchand, who built the box. He's the toy. We meet the toy maker finally. And it's the story of basically his bloodline, starting from making the box all the way to the future, like in space.
Hellraiser in space?
It's Hellraiser in space. It gets to space.
Yeah.
Let's
go.
But the original version is very wonky. It's one of those films where you can see there's a lot of great ideas here, but this is not coming together. But in the box set, they have a work print of the original movie. It's not the original director's cut, but it's as close to it as anyone can get. And it substantially changes the film, apparently.
What?
So I'm really rearranges stuff, the chronology. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Awesome.
Yeah. And you were talking about your Christmas movie. I'm curious, and I have a lot of reservations about Eli Roth has a new movie called Thanksgiving that's based on the trailer he made for Grindhouse, that Tarantino Rodriguez project that was out a few years ago. So he actually took that little like 2-minute trailer of a Thanksgiving horror movie and made it real. And I'm curious. I have very mixed feelings about Eli Roth's output, but it just seems like something that you kind of have to see if you're into horror.
Yeah. Oh, I'll probably watch it for sure.
Yeah, me too. Definitely I'll definitely see it.
Yeah.
There's one other film I'm really looking forward to. It's called Dr. Jekyll, and it's Eddie Izzard
Yes.
Oh,
playing
100%.
Dr. Jekyll.
yes. I'm in.
Subscribe.
Right? Like,
really,
subscribe.
really.
Just subscribe.
Just
Yep.
brilliant. It's
Cool.
brilliant casting.
Okay, I'm looking forward to that now.
It was just released overseas. It hasn't made it over here yet. I can't find it on streaming, but everybody keep your eye out for it. It sounds really fascinating.
I'm super looking forward to it. I don't have anything that I'm looking forward to next, but I've got a palate cleanser cozy thing for everybody. Given the fun Japanese films that you've mentioned, it reminded me of something that I think is delightful to watch. That is kind of a family drama. That
oh, you're incorporating all the themes.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's not and it's not horror. It's a show that was released in like 2016, 2017. It's a Japanese TV series called Samurai Gourmet. It aired it aired for Western audiences on Netflix, but basically it's about a recent retiree, this guy named Takashi, who was a salaryman for his whole career, and it starts with the first episode of him at his retirement, and he retires and he goes home, and there is his partner, and he doesn't know what to do with his life at that point. He's honestly in trauma. He's like suffering trauma, but he really loves, old stories of like the Edo period and everything, like samurais and all this other stuff. And he's been reading them, and he has these visions of a samurai character who teaches him how to find his passion for food and getting in touch with his life and becoming, I think the line was like, becoming his inner warrior and eating what he truly desires. It's about him finding inner peace through snacks and delicious meals. It is truly freaking heartwarming series. There's like 10 episodes or something like that, and it will melt your heart. It is so freaking good. So that's my
sounds great.
That's my little cozy, just snuggle up against it after digesting all of this delicious horror. And
that's great.
What a phenomenal time today. Wow, this genuinely got me a lot.
Can I mention two more things, because I always want to mention a book at the end. Black River Orchard. Speaking of food horror, Black River Orchard by Chuck Wendig, and anyone who follows Chuck online knows about his obsession with apples. So he finally wrote a novel in which he turns that love of apples into something really dark and frightening. The other book I want to mention is The Reformatory by Tananarive Due. It's set in Jim Crow, Florida in the 50s, and it's the novel of a young boy sent to a segregated reformatory inhabited by, and the theme of the show, human horrors, but also ghosts of previous students. It's getting really rave reviews and word of mouth. So I'm really looking forward to diving into that.
Oh yeah, that's going on my list too. Absolutely. All right, so I think we're gonna wrap. But before we go, I just want to ask everybody, what did we learn today? Don't go to Australia.
Don't go to Australia.
Right, right. What else?
Don't drink anything anyone ever gives you, ever.
Ever.
Because
stop drinking
they will
anything.
dismember you.
Yeah.
I guess when you're in concrete tubes, crawl towards the exit. Just keep crawling.
Yes.
I learned that today.
Yeah.
I learned that you shouldn't stick your head outside of a car. Just don't
Yes.
do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Just
don't ever do that.
It might
Yeah.
seem fun. Like, I don't even let the
Mhm.
dog do that.
Yeah. Don't do the Zoom seance. That's a
No.
bad idea. That's a very bad idea.
Don't
Maybe
use
try
Zoom
and-
filters.
Don't use some filters, exactly.
Never. Not even once. Not after that film.
Maybe not not give up on dating, but not lie so much to get a date.
Yeah, I gave up on dating. Like,
Yeah.
no. Yeah, no, it's way safer.
It's
No one's
way safer.
no one's chopping me up.
Mhm.
Oof.
Yeah.
Well, it's a lot of lessons today.
I
It's a
know.
A lot of lessons. My therapist is
grew-
going to be fully earning her keep this week, so that's great.
I think we grew a lot together today. Like
I
that.
think so.
I like
think
that for
so.
us.
Me too. All right. Thank you, everyone, for
Yay!
coming by today. You can check us out on all of our links, Raised by Horror. And we have links to all of the personal projects that all of us are involved on those pages as well. We have a blog. We have everything. It'll all be in the notes. I'm not going to say it on screen. You're going to forget it. So it's there right below the video, right in the added text. It's going to be an easy place for you to click, save, do all the things. So
Yep.
thank you so much. Big thank you to Violet and Richard today. And we'll see you next time.
Next
Ooh.
time.
Next time.
Well,
Bye.
okay, I think, all right. And